The house had grown too quiet lately. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the kind that creeps in when words stop meaning anything. Martin and I hadn't really spoken about anything real in weeks. His job had swallowed him whole, and whatever was left of him came home drained, distracted, and distant. Dinners passed in silence. Nights in the same bed felt like sleeping beside a ghost. And I had gotten used to it. Too used to it. Then Landon came home for summer break. His presence filled the house in a way Martin's no longer could. He was taller than I remembered, more confident in his movements, his voice deeper, his eyes more watchful. He still called me Grace, never Mom, which was fine by me. We were never close, not in that way, but there was always respect between us. At least, that's what I thought. He arrived with 2 bags and a casual, "Hey," before disappearing into his old room. I didn't expect much conversation. College had turned him more inward, it seemed. Still, he was polite, helped me carry groceries, and even offered to cook one night when I was too tired. I told myself he was just being kind. But sometimes, when I caught him watching me while I cleaned or reached for something on the top shelf, his gaze lingered, too long to be casual. I told myself I was imagining it. Maybe I was. I wanted to believe that. It happened on a Thursday night. Martin had called earlier to say he'd be staying at a hotel near his conference. I poured myself a glass of wine and curled up on the couch with a blanket and a documentary I didn't care about. At some point, I dozed off. When I woke up, the house was dark, quiet again, but I noticed Landon's door was still cracked open. I figured I'd remind him to turn off the downstairs light. Still half asleep, I walked toward the hallway and, without knocking, pushed his door open fully. And I froze. He was on his bed, shirtless, blanket barely covering his lower half, his hand clearly beneath it, eyes closed. He didn't hear me at first. The soft sound of his breathing, strained and uneven, filled the room. My breath caught, panic rising in my throat. I should have closed the door. I should have turned away. But for a moment, just a flicker of a second, I didn't. And then he opened his eyes. He saw me. I saw him realize what had just happened, and yet, neither of us moved right away. His chest rose and fell, flushed with heat. But it was his eyes that struck me, wide, yes, but not just an embarrassment. There was something else there, something that made my spine tighten. I stepped back, heart pounding. My hand fumbled for the doorknob as I quickly shut it, then rushed back to my room, breathing hard, my skin tingling with shame and confusion. What had I just walked into? Why hadn't I looked away sooner? I sat on the edge of my bed, the wine glass still in my hand. My mind raced. This wasn't just a mistake. This wasn't something you just laugh off in the morning. There was something about the way he had looked at me, open, unflinching, not a boy caught red-handed, but a man who didn't regret being seen. That terrified me more than anything. The next morning, I avoided him. I stayed in my room longer than usual, pretending to be busy with emails and laundry. When I finally emerged, he was already gone, his bed made, his keys missing from the hook. He'd gone for a run, I guessed. Or maybe he just wanted to avoid me as much as I wanted to avoid him. But the silence in the kitchen wasn't the same as before. It wasn't empty, it was charged. I couldn't help but wonder if he'd planned that moment somehow. Had he left the door open on purpose? No. That would be absurd. Wouldn't it? I shook the thoughts from my head and told myself I was overthinking. He was a young man. It was private. He was embarrassed. So was I. That was it. That had to be it. And yet, when I stood at the sink, rinsing the dishes from the night before, I could still feel his eyes on me, even though he wasn't there. The following days were a quiet dance around what had happened, though nothing had been spoken aloud. Landon had returned later that day acting as if nothing was wrong. He greeted me with a casual hey, poured himself a glass of water, and went straight to his room. No eye contact. No conversation. I matched his silence, too afraid to give away that my mind had replayed that moment over and over in the last 24 hours. But the strange thing was, he wasn't avoiding me anymore. If anything, he became more present. He started lingering in the kitchen longer. Sitting on the edge of the counter while I cooked. asking if I needed help folding laundry or cleaning out the garden. It was nothing overt. Nothing that could be called out. But the way he looked at me now, there was something behind it. A pause in his gaze. A hesitation in his words. Like he was waiting for me to say something. Like he was waiting for permission. I thought about talking to Martin. But what would I say? That I walked in on his son during a private moment and couldn't stop thinking about it? That his silence and absence had made my mind drift to places it shouldn't have? No. I couldn't say any of that. So I said nothing. One evening, I was sitting on the back porch just after dinner, watching the sky shift from orange to grey. The air was cool. I wrapped a shawl around my shoulders, lost in thought. A door creaked behind me, and Landon stepped out, holding a second mug of tea. "I thought you might want this," he said, offering it to me. I hesitated. Then took it. "Thanks." He sat down beside me, just far enough to be appropriate, just close enough to make my chest tighten. "I used to sit out here with my mom when I was younger," he said quietly. "Before she passed. She liked to watch the stars come out." I turned to look at him, surprised. "You never talk about her." "There's not much to say. It was a long time ago." We sat in silence for a moment, sipping tea. "She would have liked you," he added. That made my throat catch. "I'm not sure your father does anymore." He glanced at me then. "That's his loss." I looked away quickly, pretending I hadn't heard the weight in those words. The next few days blurred. Martin left again for work, some urgent project that couldn't wait. I didn't argue. I never did anymore. He kissed my cheek in a half-hearted way and left before sunrise. I watched his car pull out of the driveway and didn't feel anything. Not relief. Not sadness. Just stillness. That evening, Landon offered to make dinner. I let him. It was simple: pasta, salad, wine. We sat across from each other at the table like two people who weren't supposed to be alone together. But we were. He made me laugh, really laugh, for the first time in weeks. Told me stories about college, his annoying roommate, a professor who wore mismatched shoes. I forgot to guard myself. I forgot to keep the walls up. After dinner, he stood behind me as I rinsed plates. His hand brushed mine when he took the plate from my grip, and his fingers lingered, too long. I tensed. Frozen. But I didn't pull away. He leaned slightly closer. "You okay?" I nodded. But my voice failed me. "Grace," he started, but stopped himself. I turned to him. The space between us was shrinking. My heart beat faster than it should have. "This isn't right," I whispered. "I know," he said. "But it doesn't feel wrong." I stepped back, putting the island between us. He didn't chase. He didn't push. He just looked at me like he saw through everything I had been hiding. I went upstairs alone that night. Locked my door. Laid in bed with the lights off, listening for sounds I hoped wouldn't come, and fearing the ones that might. And still, I didn't sleep. Because all I could think about was how his fingers had felt on mine. And how I hadn't stopped him. I avoided him the entire next day. I kept myself busy with chores that didn't need to be done. Dusting already clean shelves, rearranging the pantry, scrubbing the same corner of the sink over and over again. Landon stayed mostly in his room, his door closed but not locked. I noticed everything now, the timing of his footsteps, the pauses outside my door, the deliberate distance. I was grateful Martin wasn't around. I couldn't have pretended with him. Not after last night. That moment in the kitchen had changed something, not just between Landon and me, but inside me. The barrier I had always trusted to hold my choices in place felt like it had quietly crumbled. And what scared me most was, part of me wasn't trying to rebuild it. I didn't want to be that woman, the kind who let loneliness justify the unthinkable. I told myself I hadn't done anything wrong yet. But that wasn't true, was it? Not when my heart raced every time I heard his door open. Not when I found myself remembering how his voice softened when he said my name. That night, the house felt heavy with silence again. I couldn't sleep. My body felt hot, restless beneath the sheets. I kept replaying his words, "It doesn't feel wrong." The clock on the nightstand read 1:12 a.m. when I heard the soft knock. I froze. Another knock, gentle, patient. I tiptoed across the room, barely breathing. My fingers hovered over the doorknob. Grace. His voice was barely a whisper. I cracked the door open, just enough to see him. He stood there in a t-shirt and sweatpants, barefoot, eyes tired but certain. "I forgot my charger in the kitchen," he said. A weak excuse. I didn't respond. I just opened the door fully, stepped back, and let him in. He didn't go to the kitchen. He didn't ask questions. He just stood there, watching me, waiting. I looked at him, really looked. This wasn't a boy anymore. This was a man who had seen how empty I was inside and still wanted to touch what was left of me. He came closer. I didn't stop him. His hand slid gently over my cheek, hesitant, like he was giving me one last chance to say no. But I didn't. Our lips met. Soft at first. Careful. Then deeper. Slower. Like we'd been holding that moment back for far too long. Everything in me screamed this was wrong. But my body didn't listen. We moved together without a word, guided by years of loneliness and one shared truth. We both just wanted to feel something. To be seen. To be chosen. It wasn't loud. It wasn't wild. It was quiet, aching, desperate. When it was over, we lay there in silence, not touching. I turned away, clutching the sheet to my chest, heart racing with guilt and something even worse, regret for the inevitable. "I shouldn't have come," he whispered. I said nothing. He got up, dressed slowly, and paused at the door. "I'm sorry," he said. But I didn't know if he meant for the act or the fallout. When he left, the door clicked shut so softly it felt like the closing of a chapter. The morning after, sunlight felt cruel. I didn't get out of bed. I couldn't. When I finally forced myself downstairs, the house was too clean. His bags were gone. So was he. Martin returned that afternoon. He kissed my cheek. Asked if everything was okay. I said yes with a smile so convincing it scared me. A few days passed. Then I found it. A note, tucked between the pages of the book I kept on the porch table. I never meant to ruin anything. I just needed to feel something real. "I'm sorry I blurred the lines. Thank you for not pretending I didn't exist." I sat there holding it, staring at the ink. My fingers trembled, but my chest didn't ache the way I thought it would. Instead, I felt empty. Like he'd taken something with him when he left, and I wasn't sure I'd ever get it back. I don't know what I'll do next. I don't know if I'll tell Martin. Or if I'll carry this to my grave. But every time I pass Landon's room now, I remember how silence can scream.